got a question from last week. Do you still intend to stay in the predominantly white church that you are in, if that's what you attend? Are you even planning on going to maybe a church that might be predominantly black, or you're not going to church at all? Or what's the issue here? Because I think some things need to be talked about. Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back.
You can do it. Don't stop. Ed Montgomery. Come on. A new way of thinking. Transform your mind. Straight from the vine. Fresh new wine.
Welcome to our program. I am Ed Montgomery, aka Dr. Ed. Thank you so much for joining us right here on Fresh New Wine. Fresh New Wine. Wine is because this is what Jesus called his teaching. New because the wine is expanding. New wine is wine that is just beginning to ferment and it is expanding. So you don't put expanding thought into old, tough structures that have already been expanded as far as they're going to expand. You got to get new structures to put this new wine in. We call it fresh because we're in a new world right now. We're in a new era and a generation of living. Also, remember, you can find us. I drop a new video every Sunday morning at 11 a.m. Central Standard Time on Sensational Sunday, when I'm in a more of a, people call it a church setting. I call it session, that I'm able to just talk to people on Sunday mornings, which I'm every Sunday morning, I'm live doing that. So join us then. Now, last week, I asked the question, how many of you attend predominantly white churches, PWCs? And I'm curious, are you still there? You may have. Are you still there? And I'm curious as to why do you attend PWCs, especially if many of these churches, we know at least 81% of white evangelicals lean toward MAGA. They vote MAGA. Make America Great Again. When was America great? Was America great when? When did you believe it was great? And what they're telling you now is when they were in charge, which is what white Christian nationalism is, to begin to put white people, or whatever they call white people, back in charge through their Christianity, in charge of the nation, to bring Christianity as the religion of the American nation, if you even accept that. So, when you go to a predominantly white church, if you are black, I'm not just, honestly, now that I'm sitting here, thinking about this thing, I'm not just talking to black people. I'm talking to black people, I'm talking to the Latino community, I'm talking even to what we call white-skinned or white communities, not white skin, all of this is shades of brown, but I'm talking even to the white community. If you're no longer in that MAGA world, why are you going to a church that predominantly leans toward MAGA teaching? The standing behind the current administration of our government and saying, I don't care what he does or what they do. I'm standing behind because this is where I believe Jesus wants me to be. Jesus wants to change this country. God wants to change this country. And this is how we're going to bring America back. Now, I can't change that. I'm not here to preach against it or for it one way or the other. No. I'm curious about why black people, people of color, people with a history of watching people deal with oppression thinking, oppression thoughts. And you can still hear the concepts of oppression bleeding through the scriptures that are being taught on Sunday. Why are you still in what we would call a PWC, a predominantly white church, or a church that believes in white Christian nationalism, or believe that white is the color, or should I say, the people who should be in charge of America because they believe this is their manifest destiny or this is their country? All right, here's the deal. Once upon a time, when America was young, before there was an America, when America or this northern continent was filled with indigenous peoples, back in 1619, we know that a ship full of African slaves, actually on a Dutch boat, landed on the coast of what we call America. In 1620, we also understood there were people called the Puritans who left England on this boat called the Mayflower. And as they got over on the Mayflower, they landed on that place called Plymouth Rock. I believe it was Malcolm X said, you didn't land on Plymouth Rock landed on you. And when they saw this country filled with indigenous people. And they looked over and realized there are people already here, but they didn't consider them people. They considered them obstacles in their way. And during that first season, the majority of them starved to death. They came through what was called the starving. In other words, they even moved into cannibalism. And the indigenous people taught them how to survive later on after that season. Well, 10 years later, you got those up in Massachusetts. Then another boat, the Arabella, came down. I think it was the Arabella. Came down and they landed in around 1630 down toward the area of Virginia. And they came believing John Winthrop had preached in England that you're going to a city, you're going to a new country that they would actually call the New Jerusalem. They believed that they were the new people to go to a new land, that New Jerusalem where Jesus would one day come back. They believed it was the manifest destiny of them to be able to go, to migrate and to go across this vast land and to share not only their religion, but to share who they were because this was their country. I know. This is what they said. This land is my land. This land is our land, my land. From California to the New York Island. This land is made for you and me. They were not talking about you and me. They were talking about somebody else. They were talking about you and me. In other words, the same people. They weren't talking about the indigenous people as well as the black people. Now, don't go away. I want you to watch this. I will be right back in just a few moments. Okay? I know I'm not supposed to be interrupting right here, but remember, myalc.org. That's myalc.org. And you can also give at 713-742-2035. You can use your text to give or use your app. If you're on the app, you can go right to that donate button and it won't change anything. You say, why in the world would you break my concentration? I'm sorry, but I wanted you to remember because you know what? Just like there's a break in here, there's also going to be a breakthrough in your life. I believe that. Now, let's go back. Thank you so much for joining us and thank you for coming back. Make sure you hit that like button right where you are right now. Like and share with somebody that you know. Say, I need you to hear what Dr. Ed is talking about and to let them know that so that they can click on and see what we're talking about. And also, if you have comments, talk to me. How many of you are members of PWCs, predominantly white churches? How many of you are sitting in a predominantly white church and saying, I'm not leaving? Tell me why you are there. We know doctrine-wise, we know scriptural-wise, there's some problems. If you read any history, you're going to find out there's some problems. The Puritans discovered there were some problems. So why are you still there? What's going on? Talk to me. Why are your children there? Why have you put the minds of your child into their youth ministries? Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying I don't go to churches where white people preach or things of that sort. No, there are conferences I attend. There are places or meetings or workshops I will attend. I know how to to eat the meat and spit out the bones. I know how to do that. I'm talking about my membership. I'm talking about sitting up under the tutelage of somebody Sunday after Sunday after Sunday who believes in MAGA. When the people out in the audience, when they talk of MAGA, Make America Great Again, the people clap. And I'm black and I'm sitting there knowing good and well that the MAGA 2025 agenda is against people of color. Now, either I'm going to clap with them or I'm not going to clap. If I don't clap, they looking at me not clapping. And they also looking at me not clapping, not caring that I don't clap. But if I clap, they're saying, oh, I must be one of them. Wow. That's amazing. You say, well, I don't see a problem with it. Well, of course you may not. Until maybe your black football player's son dates a young white Christian girl. Anyway, I'm not talking possibly, I'm talking what I've seen. But hey, cross that bridge when you get to it. Let me get back to what I'm talking about. What we realized is that this country, the manifest destiny of this country is to believe that their religion, what they believe about themselves, what they believe about this country, had to be preached everywhere. So they were preaching this Christianity while you had planters, owners of slaves going on in this country. Your founding fathers, from George Washington to Thomas Jefferson, were able to work things out, were able to study, were able to read, were able to write the Declaration of Independence or the Constitution of the United States because they had the time to write it, because they had 400, in some cases 600 slaves working on their plantations and on their land in order to provide them with the wealth that they needed. Now they had the time to do what they needed to do concerning creating their country while also leaving out the slave, as well as the indigenous people. They called them the Indians of that particular time. Everything was about church. It was about Christianity. You see, the founding fathers were all Christian. All of them were not Christian. Some of them were deists. Some of them were enlightened people. They thought differently. When they said God, they didn't mean the same God that you might mean. All of this was passed down. You got into the Civil War through the lost cause, the daughters of the Confederacy. You got into concepts about the rapture. You got into concepts about the Schofield Bible. Schofield, who was an officer in the Confederate Army. All of these things have been passed down. The religion intertwined with the politics. And the politics and religion intertwine with their nationalism. That's where you get white Christian nationalism. And they created the race aspect of it that says if you are white, based on what we call white and Christian, and in this nation, then that's white Christian nationalism. This is what we want to lead our country. That's how that thing works. And it's inside, it's interwoven. Are you still in a predominantly white church as a black man? Are you still taking your children to a predominantly white church? Here's what I think. Don't get me wrong. There are some white churches right now, white-led churches right now, that are trying to change this thing. Here's what some of them are telling me. They're saying, Dr. Ed, you know what? I would rather some of our black parishioners that we love would not be here right now because I need to talk to our white people. And it's going to get messy. It's going to get messy before it gets better. Maybe it's time that we walked out of those doors of predominantly white churches, maybe for a while, and let them get their stuff together. Okay. And when they get their stuff together, then we can sit down and talk about having some conferences and workshops so we can come in on equal power. You need to build your own spiritual base. Your spiritual heritage is rich. Re-examine it. Let's look at it again. Don't just take what we've always done. Let's begin to reshift, reform, re-educate ourselves concerning our spiritualities. Re-look at that Bible. Come on, somebody. See you next week. Hello, my friends. I'm Ed Montgomery. You know me, Pastor Ed, Dr. Ed. Thank you so much for doing what you do and contributing from your heart. People think giving comes from the pocket. Never has. It comes directly from the heart. In the world that we're living in right now, so many changes, so many things happening that will make us lose our faith. Listen, I've got to teach more than I've ever taught. Stay online more than I've ever been online. Because it's not just going to be enough to encourage. We're reteaching the faith. That's right, reteaching the faith. Because we have to begin to strengthen the teaching so that people who've never heard this gospel like this before can hear it and continue to move on. So when you give, you're pushing me and telling me and challenging me to keep going forward. Take a moment, go to myalc.org. That's myalc.org, myalc.org, and go ahead and click that donate button. It is safe, it is secure, and not only that, but it only takes just a couple of minutes, maybe even a few seconds for those of you that are already signed up. Or if you want to use your phone, wherever you're watching or however you're watching, you can use text to give. And that's 713-742-2035, 713-742-2035. Or you can go old school and you can write a check and send it in to Abundant Life Center or Ed Montgomery. It doesn't go into my pocket, it goes into our ministry. 772-300, Houston, Texas, 77215. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for what you already do. I am praying for you, and I'm praying the best over your gift and over the offering. And I pray that abundance will continue to flow in your life in so many different ways. It'll warm your heart. God bless you. Hey, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Hit that subscribe button, smash it, crash